Here are the 50 highest-grossing films of all time. All of them were produced by Hollywood. Currently, North America accounts for about 1/3 of the global film and entertainment market. The cinema of the UK, Germany, Italy, or France does not have a significant influence on the domestic or international market. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, American films made up nearly 70% of the market share in Europe. However, there was a time in the past when Germany was the movie capital of the world. This country once had the largest film industry on the planet. European film companies were pioneers in technology and led the way in artistic innovation. In the US, they held over 50% of the market share. However, this industry lost its position in just a few years. So, what happened? The answer will be revealed in the following video. In 1897, photographer Edward Muybridge discovered a way to make a horse appear to run in midair. It might sound like magic, but no, this was actually a filmmaking technique. He set up several cameras at a racetrack in San Francisco, California, and eventually the world's first films were born. However, at this time, cinema wasn't really developing in the US. It was booming on the other side of the Atlantic. The Lumiere brothers are known as the fathers of cinema. They opened the world's first commercial cinema in 1895 in Paris, and one of the first films they showed was a 50-second clip of a moving train. The train seemed to charge toward the audience, scaring them to the point where they ran to the back of the cinema. From this point on, international cinema began to explode. Around the 1900s, film became a global phenomenon. Cinema thrived in Denmark, the UK, and Germany. However, the two countries that dominated the industry were France and Italy. French cinema pioneered special effects. We cannot fail to mention the famous French stage magician, Georges Méliès, who was the first to use special effects and techniques like splicing, substitution, and multiple exposures. Italy also became known for epic films. The use of special effects like cutting, replacing, and employing beautiful settings became new production standards. European cinema was on a rapid rise, driving technical innovations like color projection and sound film. It quickly captured about 50% of the market share in the US. During this period, new content genres emerged, such as weekly newsreels, feature-length animation, historical films, and cinema screenings. Across the Atlantic, American filmmakers also found their paradise. If you want to shoot a film, you need enough light. The simplest way is to take advantage of sunlight. So to produce professional films, you need a place with plenty of sunlight. Hollywood, a small area on the outskirts of Los Angeles, was just such an ideal location. California boasted numerous beautiful scenes and perfect weather conditions. But that's not the only reason the American film industry flocked to this state. Before Hollywood became famous, the U.S. film industry was mainly concentrated in New Jersey, near the East Coast. This was where the headquarters of the Motion Picture Patents Company, MPPC, was located. It monopolized almost every aspect of filmmaking. MPPC was founded by Thomas Edison, a brilliant inventor known for holding over 1,000 patents, many of which related to filmmaking. However, this brilliant inventor was also an economic dictator. At the time, MPPC imposed very strict rules on filmmakers and controlled every aspect of cinema. Filmmakers were forced to pay MPPC or go out of business. Hollywood became the place where many independent filmmakers fled to escape the restrictions imposed by MPPC. By 1915, more than 60% of American film companies were based in Hollywood. This concentration brought significant advantages, as great, remarkable films were produced one after another, drawing crowds to theaters. Tickets were sold at higher prices, bringing in more profits. An official race had begun, and in a short time, increasingly captivating films were being produced on both continents. This led to fierce competition. So what happened next? On June 28, 1914, a motorcade passed through Sarajevo. In just a moment, everything became irreparable. A man pulled out a gun and shot 2 passengers inside. They were Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Duchess Sophie. This escalated tensions and directly led to the outbreak of World War I. Thousands of people marched to the front lines for 4 consecutive years, turning Europe into a desolate wasteland. The outbreak of World War I had a major impact on the film industry. Film production was then nationalized in all countries involved in the war. However, this is not the full explanation for Europe losing its position in the film industry. The European film industry remained active and even thrived during the war. People needed entertainment during difficult times. Films became a tool of war, with film companies receiving government funding, and in some countries, this industry even grew during those years. However, after 1918, Hollywood had completely taken over the market. So how did this happen? According to a great study by Kevin Baker, while war was raging in Europe, the film industry in the US had completely transformed. Most films were produced for theaters, and theaters began to dominate regional markets. This trend then spread nationwide, and very quickly, within a few years, became a global phenomenon. Filmmaking had now become extremely expensive and risky, as there was no guarantee that audiences would pay to watch them. But on the other hand, the money you could make from a successful film was beyond anything we could imagine. Film production now required huge investments. Savvy entrepreneurs recognized the potential of this industry, and anything to do with cinema attracted massive investments. Fox spent a total of about $92,000 on film production in 1914, and by 1917, the figure had risen to $4 million. This was an enormous increase, over 40 times, made possible by the help of wealthy investors from New York. Paramount Pictures was the result of a merger between famous players and the Jesse L. Lasky Feature Play Company, along with a major distribution company. They began launching large national advertising campaigns to promote their stars and their works. As a result, the company doubled its revenue in just 2 years. Paramount Pictures pioneered a new way of thinking. They were willing to pay directors, authors, screenwriters, and writers whatever it took to get the best scripts. The American film industry had become the equivalent of the internet in the 1910s, and nearly all the money was invested in this sector. Most startups at that time did not survive, but the few that managed to remain standing became the world's largest corporations today. By the late 1910s, nearly everything had either gone bankrupt or been merged, except for the 5 large companies known as the Big Five. These included Paramount Pictures, Fox Movies, RKO Radio Pictures, Warner Bros., and Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer (MGM), along with 3 smaller companies, Universal, Columbia Pictures, and United Artists. You would likely recognize these familiar logos immediately. The film market was like a sweet cake that everyone wanted a piece of. As a result, they actively bought up theater chains and other distribution facilities to increase their market share. This unique business strategy proved wildly successful. By 1930, the Big Five, along with the 3 smaller companies, controlled 95% of the film production and distribution market in the US. Meanwhile, in Europe, the film industry did not participate in the wild race taking place in America. It fell far behind. By 1919, 90% of the films shown in Europe, Africa, and Asia were produced by the US, and in South America, this figure was nearly 100%. Market size mattered. A film needed to be shown to many people in order to generate profit. But the European film market was unable to continue growing due to hostilities and war-related regulations. As a result, by the 1920s, most of the European film industry had collapsed. However, Germany was an exception, the only place Hollywood hadn't conquered. No American films were allowed to enter the country during the war. In the period between the 2 world wars, although still affected by the economic crisis, cinema was considered an essential need in the Weimar Republic. Looking back, we can see that the Weimar era was the strongest period in the history of German cinema. In the 1920s, many talented filmmakers from Germany emerged, such as Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau and Fritz Lang, whose films achieved worldwide success. To this day, Metropolis remains one of the most influential science fiction films of all time. This period is considered the golden age of German cinema. In theory, German films should have flooded the US market, as hyperinflation made them extremely cheap. However, this was right after the war, and American attitudes toward German films were sometimes still hostile. Moreover, these films were quite different from Hollywood cinema and did not resonate with American audiences. At that time, it was peculiar that many German films had bizarre themes, lacked romance, and focused entirely on male characters. The style of German films was rigid and lacked emotional expression. After the war, Germany allowed a certain number of American films into its market. Over time, these barriers were relaxed, and Hollywood quickly seized the opportunity. American studios began purchasing independent cinema chains, and soon the German market was flooded with American films. UFA, one of the largest film studios in Germany, faced severe financial troubles and was bailed out by two of the Big Five studios, Paramount Pictures and MGM. In return, UFA had to distribute all of their films. This meant fewer German films were shown, leading to a drop in revenue and a subsequent decline in the industry. Hollywood effectively crippled its strong competitor in a swift and efficient manner. However, over the next 12 years, every film produced under the Nazi regime required state approval before it could be released. The industry also officially banned Jews, leading to a mass exodus of German artists and actors to Hollywood. Los Angeles became the new capital of cinema, and Germany's film industry lost many of its brightest talents. World War II caused great damage to the film industry across the European continent. Many production facilities were destroyed, forcing reconstruction after the war. Nevertheless, European cinema did not completely collapse. Even after the war ended, Hollywood lobbied to have films treated as economic products, rather than cultural ones. Film studios opposed any quotas or national limits, as this would significantly harm them. While competing with Hollywood was extremely difficult, many European countries still developed thriving film industries in the following decades. Cinecittà Studios in Italy enjoyed years of great success and is making a strong comeback. British cinema also achieved significant success and remains a key player in global film production. French cinema, heavily subsidized, frequently produces works that reach an international audience. Germany occasionally produces successful international films, particularly historical ones. However, Europe never managed to concentrate its efforts the way American studios did in Hollywood. Why didn't they build a film production alliance, similar to how they have worked together in economics? Each country has its own distinct culture, and their tastes differ, making it difficult to unify European cinema. North American cinema succeeded because at least they had a unified language. The European Film Directors Association is working hard to bring the continent's film industry closer together by 2030. They emphasize that European cinema's cultural diversity gives it the strength to compete globally. Even the UK, despite leaving the EU, continues to strengthen partnerships with other film industries in the region. The role and approach to film production in Hollywood have evolved over the years. It now heavily depends on international collaboration. In fact, without such partnerships, Hollywood would not have grown as powerful as it is today. To produce films on a large scale, they are willing to shift production to countries in Europe and Eastern Europe. Today, Hollywood is like a supernatural force that no one can compete with. The US is the king of creative content, and they always aim to incorporate their national culture into cinema. While films are purely economic products, it is interesting to note that global events seem to have laid the groundwork for the dominance and growth of American cinema. If the assassination had never happened, perhaps war would not have occurred, and the film industry might have been more balanced. You've just finished watching the video. Let me know your thoughts by leaving a comment below. What did you think about this video? If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to History EX and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any exciting upcoming content.